Hi. The SARS-CoV-2 or the coronavirus is really a new virus. So the world has yet to learn a lot about this new virus. The hope we have to end this pandemic lies on a vaccine. So this vaccine will help us defeat this virus. So I'm praying and hoping that we will find one soon. I hope you like this video, and again, please subscribe and click the notification bell. The race for a vaccine is on. Right now, there are at least 35 different vaccines in preliminary stages around the world. Researchers are moving at breakneck speeds, and progress is being made ridiculously fast. And the most promising vaccines right now are ones that are very different from the traditional vaccines we all know about. This type of vaccine is called an RNA vaccine, and if successful, could revolutionize the way we prevent disease. Just like normal vaccine, RNA vaccines get the body to produce antibodies which can attack potential pathogens, but they do so in a totally different way. And scientists think that this simple yet groundbreaking concept could lead the way to stop coronavirus in its tracks. Vaccines are one of medicine's greatest inventions and prevents an estimated 2 to 3 million deaths every year. Vaccines have eradicated smallpox, reduced global child mortality rates, and prevented countless birth defects and lifelong disabilities such as paralysis from polio. Historically, vaccines work by introducing a weaker form of the virus to the body or by introducing a dead form of it. These are called live attenuated vaccines and inactivated vaccines. The virus's disease-causing traits are removed before being injected into the body. This type of vaccine could be very effective at preventing certain diseases, but the way are manufactured means they are not always a great solution when a novel sudden outbreak like the coronavirus happens, because making these vaccines also takes a huge amount of time and resources. The seasonal flu vaccine provides a good example as to why the process is cumbersome, because the key to making it is lots and lots of eggs. Egg-based vaccine manufacturing is used to make both the inactivated vaccine, the flu shot, and the live attenuated vaccine, the nasal spray vaccine. And they have been making them this way for the last 70 years. This process takes a long time. Production can take months, an eternity when there's a deadly virus circulating the globe. Propagating the viruses in question is also expensive and requires a massive number of eggs. It takes about 1 egg to make one vaccine. Some of the coronavirus vaccine development projects aren't using these more traditional approaches, but others are using newer technology to circumvent these problems. One company, Moderna, is leading the charge in creating an mRNA vaccine that could be the first of its type approved for human use. And the vaccine, called mRNA 1273, could become the first coronavirus vaccine available to the public. The development of the vaccine began when the entire genome of the coronavirus sequenced in January this year and uploaded to a public database. Scientists then identified the sequence within the genome for a key protein on the surface of the virus called the spike protein as a good vaccine candidate. It is one of the major antigens of the coronavirus that the human body can make antibodies against. The nucleic acid sequence that codes for the spike proteins in the body is then encoded into the instruction molecule and a messenger RNA. The mRNA molecule can then be replicated many times and administered to patients directly as a vaccine. The mRNA then travels throughout the body and eventually instructs some immune cells like macrophages and dendritic cells to make copies of the spike protein. The spike protein antigen is then displayed on the surface of the immune cells that have taken up the mRNA. The presence of the spike proteins lets the immune system think that it has been infected by the coronavirus. Immune cells then learn about the spike protein and mount an immune response against it. This novel approach is promising because the virus itself doesn't have to be propagated to make a vaccine. This cuts out a time-consuming process and instead uses the human body, in a sense, to manufacture its own vaccine. In contrast to the months required to make traditional vaccines, RNA vaccines can be made in the lab at approximately 1 week using readily available materials. And because it is relatively easy to encode mRNA with any nucleic acid sequence, variations of the vaccine can be made quickly too, using the same production methods and manufacturing facilities. This in particular could become vital for viruses that mutate, allowing vaccination efforts to be more nimble and adaptable to changing circumstances. DNA and RNA vaccines have also been used for years in veterinary medicine for diseases like rabies in dogs, foot and mouth disease in cows, and even bronchitis in chickens. The science of mRNA vaccines may be proven in animal models, but it will still require a lot of testing in humans before it can be released into the general public. Vaccine developers have to be very careful. The main risk that researchers need to be careful to avoid is a phenomenon called disease enhancement. This is when vaccinated people who do get infected with the actual virus develop a more severe form of the disease than people who have never been vaccinated. And this does come up on occasions on clinical trials. And more recently, a similar thing happened to dengue infections in the Philippines. Because of risks like this, these trials have to be taken extremely seriously, and they usually take place in 3 phases. After a vaccine candidate has been tested in laboratory animals, phase 1 of the clinical trials begin, for the vaccine is first introduced into humans. This usually involves a few dozen healthy volunteers to test the vaccine for safety. Phase 2 involves several hundred people, usually in a part of the world that is affected by the disease or in groups of people where the vaccine is intended for, and again monitored for safety and also efficacy. The third phase does the same in several thousand people. And because of this long but important process, vaccines usually do not get regulatory approval for 10 years or more. But for the new vaccines being developed, researchers and regulators are trying to fast track that process, who are also trying not to cut corners. Phase 1 of testing for the mRNA vaccine has just begun, with the first ever person being injected with the new vaccine just a few months ago. Some think the vaccine could be ready for regulatory approval in 18 months. However, the 18-month timeline is still an optimistic one. Basically, everything has to go right and all 3 phases of the clinical trials throughout the vaccine to be ready for 2021. If they can pull it off, it would be a world record. But even if it takes longer, the development will be groundbreaking. mRNA vaccines are likely to be a big part of the way we prevent infectious diseases in the future and could hopefully be a powerful tool in the toolbox in any future viral outbreak. I hope you like this video, and again, please subscribe and click the notification bell. Until my next video, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.